Howard here, today with Pinguicula moranensis var. alba. This particular variety is from 25 kilometers or about 15 miles outside of San Cristóbal, Mexico. And I'm not sure exactly which San Cristóbal, the state isn't specified, but yeah, about 15 miles outside of a town, somebody either collected seed or plant of these. I believe that it made its way to BCP, which is Best Carnivorous Plants in the Czech Republic. To get that plant back to the States, it's expensive in terms of like importing and certification fees, etc. It's got to be like phytosanitary and all sorts of fun stuff. I didn't pay for that. I bought this in kind of a bulk collection sale from a friend of mine in Portland, Oregon, who was kind of moving away from carnivorous plants. Now, Pinguicula moranensis var. alba, 25 kilometers from San Cristóbal, Mexico, is a mouthful. In-house, I typically refer to it as More Alba 1, since it's the one that I've been growing the longest. And it's also been really important to our breeding program at Brambles Botanicals. To me, this is a fantastic foundational Pinguicula. As far as a plant goes, it's a blank sheet of paper. Like, as you can see, the leaves are tremendously green. There isn't any note of anthocyanin, i.e. pigment, even under pretty high light. So from there, we can look at other pings and note how color is present in the leaves. Whether it's a blush or a venation, there's typically some sort of green to red to cream to pink variations within the leaf coloration. So here, that isn't present. It's green. Additionally, the flower is white, with the exception of some green-yellow coloration within the throat, which is here, right in the center of the flower. But from there, we can consider other Pinguicula flowers and look at, okay, this isn't just white. Like, where is color added? How is it added? Is it veining? Is it the entire corolla flower, etc.? So as you can probably tell, this is an old flower. There's a tag back here indicating that I pollinated this. This is a selfed flower, so it's starting to fade, which is promising. That typically means that something that it wants to work on seed. It doesn't need a pollinator to visit it anymore. It just wants to work on seed. Whereas this is a fresh, unpollinated flower. This is also an old, fading flower. And in terms of size, this also is kind of right in the middle. Flower or plant itself, like this here, this pot is 3.5 inches wide, so this plant is about 4 inches, or like it's exceeding 100 millimeters, whereas something like Pinguicula gigantea can get to be 3 times that size, like 300 millimeters, like a dinner plate. The flowers are also about mid-range. Look at these really quickly. That's about 35 millimeters tall and about 33 millimeters wide. Compared to something like Pinguicula amarginata, this flower is large. Compared to Pinguicula felici, the flower looks small. It's also just a really robust, vigorous plant. Once it reaches flowering size, it tends to put out flower after flower after flower, whether it's awake or dormant, like here where it's just starting to wake up. It tends to flower with infrequent and short breaks. Though I do typically pollinate a lot of its flowers, and I'm not yet sure if pollinating a butterwort's flower kind of triggers it or encourages it to send up another flower. But I would imagine, like my gut feeling is that it would do that. It does go to sleep, particularly in the cooler months, but that doesn't necessarily stop it from flowering, as you can see here. It's one of the first pings that we tried selfing the plant and had success with. So like this plant is actually not the parent plant. It's a selfed baby from the parent plant. And we've also done this by self, and I think we're getting to this by self. And to me, this seems to be a very strong genetic contender. Like it is extremely consistent with itself, whereas some other plants, when you self it, you actually get a lot of variation in the babies. So that it kind of tells you that there's a lot of different genetics going on. But with a plant like this, or Pinguicula Moctezuma, for example, like the genetics are borderline aggressive, very strong, and very consistent with little to no variation. We've also successfully bred this with other butterworts, including other moranensis varieties, Pinguicula hemiepiphytica, a couple of our memory lane series. So it seems to be a pretty robust breeder just in general. Like if I'm curious if a new butterwort's flower is fertile, I often will go to this plant and try to do a cross with it because the pollen is so potent.
And then while we're here, let's take a look at the pollen. So take this little micro applicator, go behind the stigma, and that's what the pollen looks like. If I put this on the stigma, then I would self the plant. But I'm not going to do that tonight. I've made a lot of alba myself.
And the resulting seed pods from these plants are also, it's surprising. Like I would say safely, on average, we get about 300 seeds per pod. So pollen or pod, it's a very fertile, very vigorous plant. If you put this in a mix that it's happy with, especially if it has some lime, it also props well from pullings. It's forgiving with light levels. If you're interested in butterworts and learning more about propagating butterworts, I would highly recommend trying to find this plant. We sometimes have it available for sale. We also have a lot of its babies. We bred this with a different moranensis alba, genetically unique. So you may just get something even better, but still alba. So all in all, a great plant if you want to experiment in ping propagation. Well, those are my notes for Pinguicula moranensis var alba, 25 kilometers from San Cristóbal, Mexico. Thanks for hanging out with me, and I hope to see you in the next video. Adios.
Using the slider you helped us buy to film tonight. Thank you.
Oh, yes, very important news stuff. Oh, hello.
Actually, that would be technically sunset.
I'm not tremendously familiar with Mexico, personally. I would like to be. Mexican botanists, call me.